Adam, thank you so much for joining us today. The man, the legend. I know you got retention.com to what, 22 million in annual recurring revenue, and you recently launched a new project. Is it RB2B?
RB2B, like
What
R
does
like retention, and then B2B like B2B
I was
marketing.
wondering what R stood for, retention.
Yeah. I tried to relate it to our other business somehow, you know.
Mm. And you got that
Um,
to what, half a million?
it's at, well, I mean, we launched it 12 and a half weeks ago. It's at like 675 ARR,
Nice. In how many weeks?
12 and a half.
That's incredible.
It is. I've never been a part of anything like it.
That's awesome. So
Yeah, thank
what
you.
obviously product market fit, but do you attribute to having built an audience and following before? Like what's the secret sauce?
Yes. I mean, both of those things. The audience part of it has been incredible. I mean, the sort of short story is, um, I thought retention.com does something similar to RB2B. So it's like someone hits the website and we resolve them to retention.com. We sell to e-commerce stores and we just resolve it to a consumer email. RB2B, we resolve it to a LinkedIn profile and a business email and send it to Slack. So, uh, I thought, just based on what I was seeing 2 years ago, that retention.com was like a unicorn twice over. And like by honing down on this ICP, we would get rid of our churn problem and the metrics would look like Klaviyo, this email provider in the space.
Hmm.
And it just wasn't like that. It's like, uh, you know, uh, now I know that really when the essence of that SaaS is we're selling leads and we're trying to call it a SaaS, right? Like that's what you're doing when you're selling leads and intent data, and that's going to be a high churn product category. uh we have a high churn buyer persona because it's like big Shopify stores. So anyway, as that situation sort of like turned out to not be what we thought it was, I hired this big time data COO, Santosh, and he had been saying the entire time, he's like, no one's doing this in B2B at the person level. The company level is ubiquitous, and people actually do like that product a lot. Person level's better. We need to sell this to B2B. We should try to sell this to B2B. So meanwhile, I had like, as a to try to grow the e-com side of the business, I had started creating a personal brand, and I started on LinkedIn as a platform.
Hmm.
And those guys were kind of on Twitter, but the idea was like LinkedIn, the creator versus consumer imbalance is like way in favor of the creator. So it's easier to build an initial audience on LinkedIn. So it was start on LinkedIn, then go try to figure out Twitter. And meanwhile, like 12 months in, my LinkedIn game had gotten really strong, but it just wasn't producing actual leads of
Hmm.
these e-commerce businesses. It was doing a lot of other stuff. It was like great for our brand awareness, great for the ecosystem, great for, recruiting, all that stuff, but just not, no, like, this business is coming from this post, right? That didn't exist. So, meanwhile, I had this great LinkedIn coach, and he's like, I still work with him. His name's Alec. And he's like, I'm like, man, we're thinking about launching a B2B version of this. And he's like, by the way, this guy works with 10 B2B SaaS. They're mainly selling to sales and marketing people like that. This is
Hmm.
wheelhouse. And he's like, dude, if you start writing about your own SaaS revenue problems and it's aimed at revenue people in SaaS, he's like, I will be able to get you on the phone with any person in SaaS. Like this is our playbook. So basically it's like, especially with what I was willing to say and, sort of how much I cared, how much of myself I was putting into this.
Hmm.
He's like, you will absolutely crush it. So, I mean, it was literally this short of an amount of time. Like I I kind of done like a work in public post when my VP sales quit in June. And it did really well because I was like, fuck
Is
my
it under
VP sales.
retention or
For
RB2B?
retention.com, yes. Like,
Mm.
fuck my VP sales quit. I think we're going to shrink our sales team instead of replacing him, whatever. That was the post. Because we scaled from like, like a few reps to like 20 really fast. And then it was clear that it wasn't working how everyone thought. So I wanted to just do like this inbound model. And I'm like, I don't think it's good culturally to have like a bunch of people trying to do outbound when we haven't even figured out how to do outbound yet. Right. Like it's just we're doing this all the wrong way. So anyway, that posted really well. And as a result of that post, a bunch of people like come into me and talk to me about this. Basically, like we eliminated the entire outbound operation and things sped up. And so people, because the cultural improvement at the company was like so good, you know, it's like we
Mhm.
just eliminated spare capacity in sales orgs. It doesn't make anybody feel good, you know. So and yeah, there's just a lot of problems with it. So a bunch of people since then had been coming to me and talking about this BDR thing and like it's like in 2023 it just got a lot harder, like this playbook that was working in 21 and 22, like it all of a sudden either wasn't effective or like me, if you tried to scale it in 2023, I don't know hardly anyone that was able to like scale an early stage sort of like series A series B type SaaS BDR org inside sales in 2023. There was a
And it's
lot
interesting
of
because
stuff
I'd say
happening.
I just want to double click on that because I see a lot of kind of battles and on LinkedIn, and some people are saying, look, it's still working, you're just not doing a good job at it. And the only thing that changed is really a couple of years ago, zero interest rate environment. It's
Right.
go, throw everything at the wall, see what sticks, and people are flush with cash from startups all the way up. And the only thing that changed now, it's a different environment. People are stingy with budgets. You just need to be more creative, but still outbound email, outbound LinkedIn messaging or phone still works. You just need to be more creative and more tactical, I guess, about it. A lot of people say, "Hey, it's a new world. People have zero tolerance. Your TAM is not infinite, and you burn more than you create by spamming everyone." So,
Yeah.
in those kind of two different camps, and I know you've been in this
I have
for
a
a
very strong
while.
view about all of
What's
this.
what's your take on this?
So like, here's my thing. I think we are in the middle of a mega trend of declining response rates. I don't think anybody, for whatever reason you want to assign it to, response rates are half of what they were 2 years ago. Certainly part of that was ZERP, but like also as automation technology gets more and more ubiquitous, more gets sent, right? And it's just like, to me, it's just like a math equation. Like if you ask me if salespeople will send more email next year than this year and more LinkedIn messages next year than this year, I would bet you every single dollar that I have that they will. That's just the world we're living in, right? Like more is going out, right? Um, so even the best personalization, the absolute perfectly crafted message, if it doesn't get opened, it doesn't matter, you know? So, and I think this is analogous, like, this is not a perfect metaphor, but like in 2018, my smartest friend, he worked at Goldman Sachs for like 10 years. And then he was just like in 2018, 2017, 2018, he's like, these shopping mall equities are way too cheap because like whatever you're looking at the rents and the whatever, it's like oh, Amazon, damaged them, but like where these stocks are trading, the underlying fundamentals sort of like justify them being way higher, right? And over the next 5 years there were a few dead cat bounces, but like they're all bankrupt now, like all these like B and C malls that he built. And why? It's because like there's a mega trend that is happening that is moving away from shopping and shopping malls. And I just think there's a lot adding to this mega trend in response rates, right? It's like from all sides. It's like the supply of messages is going up, the quality of messaging is probably going down. There are tools being put in place to like stop the messages from coming in or whatever. So look, I'm sure it still works for some people. Like some of the pushback that I got was I was like, oh, it like didn't work. You know, we had BDRs that were like, we had two of them. It was like working, and then we grew to 10, and it was like the same amount of demos that were being booked. And now I understand why, right? Because like I think that demand these days is not created by an SDR, right? An SDR is they are there to sort of capture demand from this machine that you have built that is like marketing and everything else you're doing in the real world. But the pushback's like, oh, that never should have worked for a 20K deal anyway. That was ZERP. That was like automation tools. You never should have been able to make that work. So it's like, okay, so let's say the floor is 50K now. Like, what happens in 2 years when response rates get cut in half again? The floor is 20, and then 2 years later, or sorry, the floor is 100, and then 2 years later, the floor is 200K. And like, how many sales reps are trying to prospect for under $200,000 annual deals? Almost all of them, you know? So like, that's kind of what I perceive will happen over the next 5 years or so. Yeah, yes, it can still be done now, but like, if you look at all of the sort of like underlying fundamentals of like cold messaging, it it will all likely, as we know it, it will all likely be much harder in the coming years. Now, retention.com, it's a hard business to grow. The only thing that we can do to get customers is we have a list of 1,400 target customers, and we, in the real world, find people that know them and try to get those people to real live event, you know, a dinner or like a ball game or something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's like that is that will never go away, right? Like ABM to that extent is not what I'm talking about, right? But like a massive team of, you know, fresh out of college kids like sitting there and clicking to like send messages and reacting to email opens and stuff like that. Like that whole game, while I'm sure that some people can still make it work, I just don't. I think it's going to continue to get harder and harder every
Yeah.
year, and fewer people will be employed doing that every year.
Which is
That's my view.
which leads to $1 million question. I saw your on your recent post. You said the future of B2B sales is here, it's just not well distributed yet. So you have a vision of what that future is going to look like. So
So,
drum
so,
roll.
so look, I think I'm in a unique situation. I don't think this applies to everybody, right? But like, I happen to be in this like incredible position where I am now. Now, this wasn't the case with ecom, like I was telling you. Like, I wasn't my ICP, so like the content did not resonate with like this incredible sort of like sting like it does when I talk about my pain and SaaS. But like, I am my ICP, meaning like I'm exactly who I'm selling to. And they live on this platform, right? Like they kind of do their jobs on LinkedIn. So like I can try to create so that's one part of it. It's like this dream alignment between author, platform, and audience, right? And there's been this other development which is really interesting. And I've been trying to like articulate. So like I think if you have, I believe that organic social is like if you can figure out how to be the best at organic social, the relative value between paid and organic is now like 100x in favor of organic ever since TikTok. Because before TikTok, the organic algorithms were connect, or they were social graph based.
Mm-hmm.
Post TikTok, which is crushing it because it's interest based, it's a whole new game.
Mm,
TikTok got so many people to use it because if your content was good, it didn't matter whether you had 10 or 100 or a million followers, it could get watched by 15 million people, right? So um, now the population's kind of maxed out on social time or whatever. So the platforms are fighting each other for the attention of these people.
mm-hmm.
And interest-based algorithms win that fight, right? Like, of course they do. Like people are going to spend time on the platforms that they are most being served the most interesting content in. So all social platforms are migrating towards interest-based feeds. So why is this relevant? Um, I believe that it gives, like, if you think about like this post that you referenced, for instance, right? The amount of focus and attention that you gave that post to make it to the bottom and to like read that close and have to remember that. Like there is not an ad, a paid ad that I could serve you that would have you give as much attention as you gave to that post, right? So that's one dynamic. It's like the quality of focus that truly good organic content gets
Mm-hmm.
is unbelievable versus, you know, whatever, like Timmy at Capital serving me like a picture of their 500 yarmulkes or whatever, right? Like it's just laughable, like what a paid ad is versus like a really good post like that. And um and so like the other thing that can happen is this interest-based feed has basically made organic content distribution unlimited. If your content is good enough, it will get served to everybody in your target audience, and you won't have to pay for that. Does that make sense?
It does.
So over the last 8 months, I started writing for B2B, and in like a 7-day period, I had spent a year getting 20,000 followers. In a week, it jumped to 40. The slope of the line increased, and like I just kept getting better and better at writing these posts for this audience. And like I literally think I don't know if I had $100 million and I wasn't good at organic social, if I could have done the same thing. I don't think that I could have.
Interesting.
Do you know what I mean? Like I don't think that I
Absolutely. No,
could.
no, no. I'm totally with you. The
Yeah, I
question
don't think
is,
I could have generated the same amount of trust. And like the last thing on this is like the if you are the best in the game at this organic social, and I haven't even started doing this because we haven't figured out our free to paid yet, really, which is crazy given the fact where our revenue is, but like we still don't know the economics of it. So like you can post very quickly, you know how good it is. You know, like within a few hours, you know if it's a great post or not by LinkedIn's definition. And then if it's a great post, you can run spend on that. So like
well, not only
it's like
that, you can
another
run.
it's like this winner take all
Yeah.
dynamic of do you see what I'm saying? So like it's so much. And then the last thing on this is like, here's my last thing on all of it. It's like if you can manage to do that and like be very good at organic social, create content that the interest-based algorithms will want, that you effectively are getting more and more distribution for an unbelievably low amount of money. Uh, if you get known by your audience and then you send them an email, they'll open that. Whereas like if Pete Crowley, who works for me, sent somebody an email about RB2B, no fucking way, right? But anybody in this audience of my 85,000 followers who's been like reading all of my posts for the last 8 months, if I send them an email about something, they're probably going to open it.
Because they have
You
a
know?
parasocial relationship with you already because they've been
Exactly.
consuming your content for the last 6 months.
So, and that's kind of always existed, I think, but I really do think in the last couple of years, the shift to interest-based has just made the organic social part of this, if you can nail it in the right way, so much more valuable.
Which is kind of like what Chris Walker has been on the soapbox for a few years now about, right?
Yeah.
And yet you look at some of the sales and marketing leaders and at SaaS, and it seems like there was a revolving door. So they still lean into, paid search or
I just don't
BDR,
think
SDR teams, and then they stay for a year and then there was a new phase. So it seems like, I don't know what the attraction of this hamster wheel, for lack of a better term, but it seems like when something stops working, they just do more of it rather than do something else.
that's another major problem with the response rate thing. The reaction to everything they're doing getting less effective is to do more of it, which makes the problem even worse. But yeah, look, I think that like, I mean, we'll see, right? Like these are all, Chris Walker's been doing this a long time. Um, I think I'm the first person on LinkedIn who's trying to build a LinkedIn first, founder led, influencer led data company. I don't know of anybody else doing it. You know, the work in public stuff, whatever. So, like this guy, Mark Casgo, he was a VP sales of Outreach, their
Outreach?
first employee or whatever. Yeah. He was like, well, everybody's saying I got to do what Adam's doing now, so it's going to stop working. I respect that opinion. I wonder if it's that simple because
If you have a head start, you build the audience, you build the relationship, you have a moat, right? So for someone else, yeah, you can,
and I give an unbelievable amount of time to it. I spend half of my job doing stuff like this and writing content and trying to make it better, right? So like there's a few things. It's like number one, what CEO of a scaling SaaS company is going to And by the way, it took me 12 months to get good at it. Like there was a day when I was like, I know how to do this now. And that was 12 months after I started posting. I was just lost for 12 months, throwing spaghetti at the wall. And then it's like, boom, it's all working. I know what to do. So like when it's like, okay, everybody's going to do what Adam's doing. It's like, they can't just copy my posts because the only reason they're good is because of my perspective. Uh, are they going to be willing to give the amount of time that it takes to find that content market fit when most people don't like doing it in the first place? I didn't like doing it when I started. Writing sucks. It's like really hard. You know, it's fun now because of how much I'm getting back, how much is coming back to me, right? Like, but like that's the other thing. Like, are they going to be able to, with no certainty that it's going to work at all, give the amount of time necessary to actually learn the craft? Big question mark for me. Question number three is like, will they accept the fact that this needs to be half of their job to do it the right way, right? To really take advantage of this to the maximum extent. I think people are like 5 years away from embracing that, right? Like,
You
because you got to
think?
see a few
I
success stories, you know?
Again, I may be wrong. I have a hypothesis that in 3 to 6 months, you can download all your emails, all your social interactions into some sort of LLM that will spin the wheels for a week, train on you, on your voice, on your experiences, and you push the button and you can generate posts that with light editing can be fairly effective. So that's my fear. So
Yeah,
I'm not sure how long this lead time is, but given where everything is going, to your point, more messages, more emails, they're getting better. I think it's just a matter of time before something like this
totally.
exists for
So
a price.
I agree with that. And I hear that and I'm like, okay, cool. How do I become even more human and authentic?
Ah, I think
Right.
that's the key.
That that is literally the entire game I'm playing. It's what like Chris uses video, Chris Walker. I kind of ripped off his playbook to a large extent with the video, but like I think the video is part of that. And
Mm,
then I think regardless of like I'm gonna start adding more narrative. So like I'm gonna do a work in public post, like two sort of normal posts, and then like a kind of big storytelling narrative with an accompanying. Anyway, telling stories like this, I think it's like my goal with all this is to basically make people feel like I am a close friend, which is the parasocial thing we're talking about.
exactly.
Because I believe that if I can do that, you know, I think SaaS is becoming more commoditized. Like, I think it's going to be harder to sort of decommoditize through product over time.
Hmm.
Um, so, uh, you know, Kim Kardashian can sell stick to anyone or whatever, right? Like, they're selling commoditized products into this like wild trust thing that they've created because they know how to create content that people actually want to consume, and while they're consuming it makes them feel, it creates this type of trust that like could be created no other way.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes a lot of sense. So with this, I guess a few questions. I know we're up on time. I don't know if I have a hard stop at the top of the hour, but
unfortunately I have a hard stop because I have another show to get on.
okay. So then, two quick questions.
Yep.
In this new world that I think that you described is inevitably coming, what's going to happen to ZoomInfo and SalesLoft and Outreach and all those 2 dozen companies that support the old world?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a great question. I think you still need contact data, um, for sure. But the message, it's like if I, you know, I just like look at what people are doing with RB2B, Clay, and like Smart Lead or Instantly or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, and like Clay is a weird one because it's like so hard to learn, and but it's so flexible that you can do almost anything. You know, it's this data enrichment tool, right? That you
Mhm.
can build your limits your creativity. So like I look at things that this clay table is doing, which like takes a few hours of setup from one person who's really smart, and it can accomplish the manual labor of an entire 50-person Salesforce's, you know, jobs, right? Like in terms of just like finding out stuff about companies, like using a combination of AI and like whatever else, and enriching these contacts and then like creating messaging based upon everything it learned and then sort of sending it through, this like pirate cold email strategy, right? So it's like, uh, I look at that versus outreach and like how inexpensive it is versus, this other tech. And I'm like, to me, it's a foregone conclusion that like there will be a massive amount of share that is sort of eaten from below. The question is like, like, there were a lot of email marketing apps that still grew while MailChimp was growing the fastest, that were just in different pockets of the market,
Yeah.
So, can they just keep figuring out use cases for larger and larger companies that they're willing to pay for? Like, probably. I mean, that's what these companies are good at, I think.
Oh, no, it's awesome. Adam, it's so awesome to talk to you, but I think I
Likewise.
can spend, I have questions for like another probably 3 hours. So if you're up for it, we can do it, take two. Where can people find you? What's the best way to connect?
Yeah, just LinkedIn is where I'm doing most of my stuff. So yeah, LinkedIn, Adam Robinson, or rb2b.com.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Misha.